Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It's been a very quiet week in terms of things happening in the world of Celtic, but there has been a couple of key issues that have been raised, a couple of controversial things, and we are now nearing the start of pre-season, so I guess let's try and make the best out of some little bits of information and give some opinions on Celtic. Right then, of course, the Football Manager series is done on the channel. There may be another one soon, so I may as well address that straight away for the people who are fans of Football Manager. More to come as time goes on, I suppose, and as football comes back, we'll see what we've got to do on the channel. I've got a couple of ideas in my head for new series I want to do, including one every Sunday, which will all come down to when I get the new setup. I'll set up and go and ready to rock and roll. And when the football is actually back, of course, we'll be able to bring back the other series of 3 things we learn from, which should start from the friendly games this week. So exciting to have football back, and it'll be great to watch Celtic once more. I mean, it can't just be me that's fed up with the Premier League and such. You've got to have your own team back, your own country's football. That is what you want, and we're finally going to be getting it back. The league fixture list has been, of course, revealed. Hamilton on the first game of the season. We should have European qualifiers at some point. And we've got the friendlies this week, so we'll make sure to cover it all as much as possible on the channel, as the support has been fantastic recently. Really gave me a kick up the backside to make videos again. And that starts with, I guess, the friendlies this week. But for now, we're here to talk about the striker situation at Celtic Football Club. Of course, the news broke this week, a big bit of news, that Leigh Griffiths has been told to stay at home to work on his fitness, as Neil Lennon is not happy with the shape that he's let himself get into throughout the lockdown period, which has really came as a surprise and a disappointment to myself, but it's something I don't want to speak about too harshly. Leigh Griffiths is someone who, of course, people will know since the kind of Brendan Rodgers era began at Celtic, and we signed the likes of Moussa Dembele, and we signed the likes of Scott Sinclair, we signed the likes of Odsonne Edouard. We brought in these players who really were prime, athletic ability was unbelievable. They were miles and miles ahead of the likes of Leigh Griffiths, and in that sort of time, in that era of the early Rodgers days, Leigh Griffiths found himself far behind on a fitness, point of view of it. He wasn't up to scratch with those guys. There has never been a doubt. There has never been a sort of situation where you can turn down that he's got goal scoring ability. Leigh Griffiths, fantastic striker. He knows how to score goals. I've never said he can't do that, but he was definitely left behind in terms of, getting the chances that they got and getting the game time that he got down to his fitness. He then came back into the team, of course, took a bit off football for personal reasons, and we finally welcomed him back into the team in January, where he came in and he was absolutely tremendous. In that period of time between January and his return to the football stopping, I think he scored about 8 goals in that time, racking up a couple of assists as well. And there was a statistic at that time where I think it was just after the St Mirren game, the 5-0 win, the week before the scheduled Old Firm, where he had scored more goals in the January sort of time from January till then than the likes of Morelos, Defoe, Kent, Jordan Jones, Greg Stewart, and every other Rangers attacker combined in that space of time. It was unbelievable, because this was a guy who was wrote off. This was a guy who was told he's not going to play football at Celtic anymore. Not by so much Celtic and Celtic fans, but by the media, by Rangers fans. His career was apparently over, and he came in and showed that he was arguably still the second best striker in Scotland. Morelos wasn't scoring goals, Griffiths was, but now we've came back from this lockdown and he's been told he has to stay at home. Some saying he might be overweight, some saying it's just down to fitness, and there's a lot of reasons why this may have came about. I think first of all we've got to understand that lockdown hasn't been easy for anyone, and that goes for people who are earning no money a week to people who are earning thousands of pounds a week. Leigh Griffiths, we know has battled with mental health issues in the past, and I imagine that a time like this when you're kind of trapped in your own home and you've not got much to do, it is difficult, and we've all been guilty of pleasuring ourselves through eating and such. And if he has packed on the weight, yes, it's a shame. And I don't think it even comes down to the overweight issue. I think it is just out of fitness. Like football, top flight football, European football, and just, in general, football at Celtic is more than just a how you look sort of thing. It comes down to, you've got to be able to keep up with the best. And yes, there is. I will come to the point now where Chris Sutton did come out in the Daily Record the other day and say he's let his team down, he's let his manager down, and that was the most important thing. He let Neil Lennon down by letting himself slide during this. He has been assured, according to The Sun, I don't like to refer to The Sun often, as you know, but according to The Sun, He has been assured his future is still intact at Celtic. He's just not in the right state, the right place to go to France with them to play in these friendlies this week. But as Chris Sutton did rightly say in the article he wrote for the Record, this is a chance where Griffiths has to look at himself, take himself very seriously and think, right, I'm kind of gambling with my next year of football here, because Patrick Klimala, Vakunas Bayo and potential other strikers who may arrive at the club will certainly be above Leigh Griffiths in the pecking order if he does not get a grip of himself over the next week or two. There have been players during this that have took remarkable care in themselves, and you look at Greg Taylor, for example, who was doing all these 5Ks. Now he's the fastest player in the squad, he's ready to go, he's getting really good write-ups in what seemed all the videos and articles published by Celtic and other journalists. But then you've got Griffiths on the other hand. It's let this happen. It's quite a disappointment, especially for someone who was coming back to top form before all of this kicked off. And that's why I feel bad, because if it didn't happen and Griffiths did continue with scoring goals, he went into that Old Firm derby and scored goals, maybe this wouldn't have happened. But as he watched his teammates around him keep themselves in shape or even get themselves in better shape, you really do think that the message and the standard was there. It was set for Leigh Griffiths to follow. So it is, from a point of view in the footballing sense, a big disappointment. And I am disappointed that he has had to be left out and he has had to be told, you're not good enough right now, you're not fit enough, you need to go away. That is a shame. And obviously you can only believe bits and bobs of what's told to you. You can't just buy into everything. We don't know what's going on behind the doors of Celtic Football Club. We don't know what's going behind the doors of Leigh Griffiths. There could be so many things. And the last thing you want to do is see the abuse and such he gets on social media, because he gets targeted all the time on social media, as does many players in Scotland. But Griffiths is one of those guys who probably does struggle with that on a day-to-day basis. But all I can say is I hope that he does go and take these couple of weeks to get himself into a fit state to get back in that team, because people have been saying Klimala's been looking good in all these training sessions and been playing well in the bounce games and such. So there is a real, sort of jeopardy around whether or not he is going to be that go-to guy after Odsonne-Edouard in the pecking order of strikers at Celtic. Which brings me on to the second point of the video, which kind of makes it a Celtic transfer talk. Also in the comments below, let me know your opinions on the Leigh Griffiths situation. Are you on the side of Sutton where it is an utterly disappointing scenario? Or do you, have a little bit of sympathy in there? Do you think that it is just an overreaction? Let me know what you think. Right now, I am disappointed. But I do believe he will pick things back up. We all know how big a year this is, and you want to be involved no matter what level you are at Celtic, whether you're a starter, whether you're a third choice keeper, doesn't matter. You want to be involved. So then, Celtic have apparently, according to, I think it was maybe the Daily Mirror, I'm not too sure, they've held talks with the agents of Championship striker Lyle Taylor and the chance of maybe bringing him up to Celtic, where I would presume would be the backup striker. And that kind of brings up everything about Griffiths now, that it looks at a completely different perspective. If we sign Lyle Taylor on a free transfer, which I'll come to my opinions on in a moment, because I've had my opinions over the past few weeks on Lyle Taylor. But if it did happen, because we're one of numerous clubs, I think that the agents have said they've spoken to 10 clubs, and I can only assume that Celtic and Rangers are 2 of those 10 clubs. But if he does come to Celtic, Leigh Griffiths has got to take a really quick look at himself and think, right, I've got to get myself back up to scratch, because I reckon if we do bring him in, this is a player who would become the kind of, first name after Edouard. This is a guy who's been very good in the Championship this season for a club that is struggling in the Championship. Part of a Charlton side who are, trying to stay up in the Championship. He declined to sign the mini contract extension so that he could take up these free transfer possibilities. But in that period of time in the Championship this season, for being at a club that level and a team that struggled, he was one of the most impressive strikers in the division, and rightly is getting linked with moves away to clubs like Celtic and Rangers because of how well he's played. Of course, Taylor's no stranger to the Scottish game, but this season, just for talking sakes, very quickly, a man who made 22 appearances in the Championship, scoring 11 goals and getting an assist into the bargain, which is not a decent return for a team that are struggling and a competitive division. 24 teams in that league. You're playing 2 times, sometimes nearly 3 times a week it's in that league because of how packed the schedule is. So he's a guy who's on top of his game, and for a man at 30-year-old, being able to keep himself that fit and play that much football really is quite the contrast to Leigh Griffiths, who's been sent away on the other hand. 30 years old, as I mentioned, he's got experience in the game. He's played in the Scottish Premiership before, 35 appearances, 11 goals, 6 assists. He's spent time up here with Partick Thistle and Falkirk. But over his career, 386 appearances, scoring 142 goals, which is it's really not a too shabby a return. He's a player who, for a free transfer, you're not really thinking to yourself, that's quite bad, you know, that's quite good. He's someone who, I'll be honest with you right now, when the name was thrown about at first and when Celtic were first getting linked with him a few weeks ago and Rangers were first getting linked with him, I thought to myself, I don't think he's quite what I would like at Celtic, but there's no denying the boy knows how to score. And the statistics go to show that. I'm not someone who can sit here and say I know his game inside out. I do not watch a lot of English Championship football. As I said at the start, I barely watch English Premier League football. I couldn't tell you the ins and outs of his game. But for someone with a return like that inside his career, and now at 30 years of age, you're getting an experienced player who knows how to put the ball in the back of the net. And really, behind Edouard, that's all you need. No one is going to come into Celtic and be the first team striker. We went and rolled with the 3-5-2, yes, over the past, sort of few months, and I think that we might see the return of that. But ultimately, we have got other options. He's not a, if we don't sign him, it's not the end of the world. There are other options out there. We've been linked with a few strikers now. But this is a guy that we have apparently met up with the agents with and are looking at. Let me know your opinions. Do you think we should sign Lyle Taylor? At first I said no, but the more I look into it, it does make a bit of sense. He really does have quite a bit to his game that could be, very beneficial to Celtic. Ultimately, we're not going to spend that much this summer, I don't think. I think our squad is good enough, but we certainly need to look at the depth of it. It's thinning out a little, and we need to make sure we've got people to last the course of a 10-in-a-row season, which I do think we've got, but I would just like the security of having enough there. And this could be an answer to that, because you're spending no money. And I know we all want us to spend money, but when you think about it logically, free for a player with stats like that, I'm not going to turn that back. Anyway, that does it for this video. If you have enjoyed, make sure to hit like and subscribe, as I always say. Let me know your opinions to the topics we have discussed in this video in the comments below. Very interesting times as the football comes back this week, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot. Even I'm going to be talking about friendlies, for God's sake. That shows you how sad I've been that the football is gone, but we'll get it going when that happens. So if you have enjoyed, like, subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.